Alright everybody, I'm back with another sports related video, another football video for you guys. Roger says hey. Scarlett says hey. So I just randomly remembered that the World Cup is this year, and then I thought I don't know anything about it other than it's basically all of the different countries who have football teams come together and they compete in this World Cup. And apparently there are qualifiers for it that are actually going on now, I think. Yeah, I don't know how any of it works. So I was searching on YouTube for a video, hoping to find one that would explain to me how the World Cup works exactly. I came across this one. It is by the Brain for Breakfast channel, and I think I did videos on their channel on Australia, and they kind of take a bit of a humorous approach to things. This may sort of like get into what it takes to win the World Cup, but also I think there's gonna be a lot of like funny stuff in here too, maybe some references that I may or may not get, I don't know. But I thought I'd take a look and try anyway. It's got a lot of views, so apparently it's a pretty good video. As we get closer to the World Cup, which is still like almost a year away, I will be looking more and more into it like I did with the Euros last summer. Now I do remember you guys said that Brazil is the country that has won the most World Cups. I did look it up again, and apparently they've only won 5 though since 1930 when the World Cup began. So that I think just shows how difficult it is to win this thing. But I'm interested in what Brain for Breakfast has to say about this, what it takes to win the World Cup. So let's do it.
Football is the world's game. Its simplicity and flexibility means it was the first sport to spread to every nation on the planet. Its entertainment for both players and spectators led it to the global competition beginning this month, the FIFA World Cup. The scoreboard in football starts at 0-0, and minnows often outperform giants. Countries that don't lead the world in many other areas can do well here, and it's hard to escape that it's one of the most prestigious events for a nation to win, although there are certain things that affect your ability to do so. So what are they, and how do you win the World Cup? Football knowledge is only born through experience. Any theory needs testing. England were the first world leaders in international football, not because they were naturally the best or in any way unique. It was because they got there first. Players don't have to learn football from scratch. They build on decades of development from passing to Panenkes. The skills and tactics are only mastered by players today after they've been invented and honed. The countries with the longest histories naturally gained the most knowledge first. Next countries who got their hands on the game became the next leaders. The Rio de la Plata was the first area in the world outside of Europe to adopt the game and make national associations to compete as national teams. Uruguay is one of the most experienced international teams on the planet. Despite being a midget sandwiched between the nations that birthed Pelé and Maradona, Uruguay is still a tour de force of global football. Don't adopt the game late or neglect experience. The small supporting army behind every move need to succeed at their job for the team to succeed. To deal with everything unique about this type of football, but South Africa neglected it. South Africa were excluded from FIFA for nigh on half a century due to the apartheid regime. Upon readmission, the tricky, insipid playing style forged in its domestic league was ripped apart. In 1993, they failed to qualify for their first tournaments, with 4-0, 4-1 and 3-0 losses to Nigeria, Zimbabwe and Zambia. The rest of the continent had advanced decades in their absence. Experience is correlated with success. Twice the experience of a national team means 0.84 goals extra per game on average.
Wasn't it because like Europe had a lot of like trade? I know they had colonies down there too, but one of my previous football videos that I did, maybe it was the Beautiful Game series, which I need to continue on with actually, but the Beautiful Game I think touched upon it, where a lot of UK or European trade was happening down in South America, and then I guess the Europeans that lived down there, that worked down there, showed the game to the locals and it kind of spread that way. I think that's how it happened, but you guys can let me know down in the comments if that's right or not. But I'm assuming that that is why basically, you know, Europe had it first and then they took it directly down to South America, and so that's why South America is kind of just like right behind them.
Rule 1. Be first and don't do an apartheid.
Okay.
Experience is one way to gain information. Here's another. With inventions from around the world and the necessary capital and investors swilling around Germany at that point, Johannes Gutenberg's printing press could only have been made and spread at the right place, right time. The printing press spread news of its own invention through human connections. Events like these, chance meetings, strikes of inspiration, connections between ideas, all happen in fertile environments, forests of connectivity. The invention conceived increased connectivity everywhere. Martin Luther, for one, spread his own radical messages using Gutenberg's press. Aspiring actors head to Hollywood where the movies already are. Tech companies start where tech companies already are. The benefits of networks shine through any other problems. The greatest footballing minds also accumulate and develop around other footballing minds. The greater a nation's connection, the greater its development. Following World War I, Austria-Hungary was split among a dozen nations. But the connections in work, travel and personal and business relationships could not be broken by treaty.
I need to get on World War I again. My gosh, what happened to Austria?
Connections in work, travel and personal and business relationships could not be broken by treaty. These formerly domestic footballing connections became now international ones. Prague, Vienna and Budapest still benefited from introductions and innovations in the other countries. What became known as the Danubian School of Football Tactics emerged, a series of innovations built upon the English game and perfected among the countries that competed for the Central European International Cup. This area produced the best coaches and strikers of the early 20th century. The twinkle-toed Austrian Matthias Sindelar, career cut short by Anschluss, Josef Bitzan, Austrian-Czech highest scoring forward in history, and later the mighty Magyars and Hungarian Ferenc Puskás, after whom FIFA's Beautiful Goal Award is named. The Victorian English network of footballing minds spent Saturday afternoons in smoky Lancashire pubs, but on the continent, Viennese cafes caught up and surpassed them. These countries weren't the earliest in their adoption of the game, but they were meticulous in their perfection of tactics, coaching, psychology and fitness. The great football intellectual scene that prepared the game for the next century. England isolated themselves and didn't catch wind of this until too late. A late joiner of FIFA, then on-again off-again member, they didn't deign to enter the first 3 World Cups, instead playing the same home nations over and over. Then came in 1953 the first bomb dropped on Blighty since the Blitz. Hungary's 6-3 battering of England at the home of football. The return fixture, a 7-1 demolition, remains today England's heaviest ever loss. In the first 5 World Cups in which Austria, Czechoslovakia and Hungary all entered, one of them reached the final 4 times out of 5, losing only the final to Italy, Brazil and a West Germany that was probably not doping their players. But like England, Central Europe did not remain ahead of the curve. Just as English knowledge flowed up the Danube once upon a time, Central Europeans took their game to less communist climes. Remember, it doesn't last forever. But this isn't the only way to be networked. Television and the internet have done a big job of bringing the game to the world. Arsene Wenger, football stats evangelist of the 1990s, grew up on the Franco-German border and was able to watch German football at a time when international broadcasts were rare. With an international outlook, his introductions to the English game revolutionised players' fitness and lifestyle in the 1990s, culminating in an unbeaten season. On the other end of the spectrum, South Africa strangled information flow and even banned television until the 1970s to suppress non-Afrikaner voices and avoid what happens when information runs freely. Suppression of information tends to happen in dictatorships, and it's no coincidence that dictatorships tend to be bad at football.
What was going on in South Africa? I thought that South Africa was a British colony or something. Oh my gosh. I need to learn more about South Africa. Apparently it wasn't what I thought it was. Is it a dictatorship? Like, was it turned over to a dictator or I'm feeling really stupid right now, guys. Okay, videos on South Africa coming up. Oh my gosh.
Compounded the nation's isolation. Coincidence that dictatorships tend to be bad at football. This compounded the nation's isolation from FIFA. Many South Africans whose duty it was to organise the 2010 World Cup hadn't even seen a tournament until adulthood. Rule 2. Be connected, innovate and adopt, and don't be South Africa.
South Africa is getting beaten down in this video.
The best footballing nations in each region tend to be the most populous. As a factor, population may be stupidly obvious, but it's an inescapable truth. All else equal, a country with a higher population has more people taller, stronger, faster and better at association football than a smaller one. Some nations have millions, some merely a few thousand. A united British team would increase its labour pool by about 20% compared with England alone. Germany's 80 million blows Luxembourg's 500,000 unquestionably out of the water. The nations that materialised from the 1990s have not improved on their previous record, despite there being more than 7 times as many former communist countries in FIFA and UEFA. The evidence is clear. Population is correlated with success. Twice the population means, on average, per game, an extra 0.42 goals. Rule 3. Be big. Britain was the first country in the Victorian age with lawn bowls, croquet, lawn tennis, polo and golf. Sport was a preserve of the rich, landed or Scottish until the oiks gained access.
Little fun fact, we had a croquet set when I was growing up as a kid, and we set it out in the backyard and played croquet. It was kind of fun, actually. To get another set and play again.
But football suits the urban working class more. A single golfer needs 18 holes to play around, whereas 22 footballers need a flat grass rectangle. Cricket takes all bloody week to play. Football needs 2 hours of an afternoon. This makes football possible in places other sports are not. Almost everywhere. Almost. Greenland can't grow grass. Tuvalu and Kiribati have almost nowhere to even fit a football pitch. A place to play has retarded the development of football in the fringes of the world. If you aren't blessed in this natural wealth, you have to be the other type of wealthy. Iceland has the shortest domestic football season in the world because the pitches freeze over from October and for months they live in darkness. While Brazilians can spend their warm winter weekends outside, Icelandics have no ability. Football suffered. Less practice, less players, less football, and
Makes
losing
sense.
14-2 to Denmark.
Oh my
Starting this century, Iceland have been building indoor heated sporting venues.
I don't think I've ever seen a football score as high as 14 before. That's a pretty high score, right, for a football match?
To Denmark. Starting this century, Iceland have been building indoor heated sporting venues and training even children's coaches to UEFA A and B licence standard. Now football can be played year-round by everyone. Norway dominates the Winter Olympics not because of the wealth of individuals, but because access to sport is guaranteed in Scandinavia as a virtual human right. But this is expensive. Not every country can afford to do this. Iceland can. And the evidence has been seen on the pitch, reaching the quarter-finals of the European Championships, their first ever World Cup, and their highest ever international ranking.
There you
Football
go.
is still a staunchly working class or poor game, almost everywhere in the world, at almost every point in the game's history. But Europe still
Really?
dominates. Even if football is appealing to both an Icelandic and a person from the global south, the real difference between the two is huge. The Icelandics have a higher standard of education, health, social services, and so many things that those in the global south can only dream of.
That is really interesting to me, how football is considered like a poor man's game or whatever. I mean, I've heard a lot of people in the UK talk about that, where it kind of started in the working classes. It's not really perceived that way here in the United States, though. I think that's a really interesting difference. And maybe that's just because it was imported over here versus it was more of an organic game that developed over in Europe.
Even Iceland's poor have privileges beyond anything seen in the vast majority of, choosing it completely random, South Africa, where over 16% of people live on less than $2 a day, where 3.5 million people survive daily without clean water, where almost 20% of the nation live with HIV, and that rate far higher among the poor. The average height of a South African is around 13 centimetres shorter than an Icelandic. A lot of this can be put down to healthcare and nutrition. There are a series of serious problems that affect countries like this. While South Africa looks like a country with more than 50 million people, its sport teams draw from a healthy labour pool that is far smaller. A smaller yet wealthier demographic consisting of around 9% of the country have a HIV rate lower than Canada. It's no surprise who the sporting stars of South Africa are. There are dozens of ways that wealth sets a nation up for footballing success. There are dozens more ways poverty can drag you down. Twice the GDP per capita means on average per game an extra 0.4 goals. Rule 4. Be rich, in nature and money. And rule 4.5. If you're going to be poor, at least be rich poor.
Okay.
All of these advantages we've been talking about are only on average. If France were to play Albania 100 times, one would expect France to win out, but they won't win every game. The more games played in a single round, the higher the chances that the best team will win out. Fewer games means individual events play a bigger role, anomalies more likely. This is why the NFL uses a playoff system to determine a champion, why Wimbledon uses a single round knockout format, and the UEFA Champions League final is a single game on neutral ground. Anyone can win on the day, which makes knockout play more exciting. Group stages and leagues by comparison reward the overall better team. Spain in 2010 lost their opening match to Switzerland. Had that been a knockout round, Spain's World Cup would never have been. As it happened, they compensated. Switzerland ended up eliminated. The World Cup's single-legged knockout matches benefit underdogs. From 2026, this effect is being compounded with fewer group games and more knockouts.
That's how March Madness works over here in the States. It's the college basketball big tournament that happens in March and early April. It's called March Madness, and it is a single knockout tournament. 68 teams start out. Sometimes you'll get what we call a Cinderella team, which, I don't know if you guys use that term also in other sports, but the Cinderella team that's not supposed to make it past like the first or second round gets all the way almost to the end or to the end of the tournament. So that's always the excitement about March Madness. You just don't know what's going to happen. So I can totally get what he's talking about here. I guess that means the World Cup is a knockout tournament then. Okay, so there's a group stage. So is that taking teams from the same kind of like geographical region and having them play together? I don't know how to interpret what was written here. Maybe he'll go over it, but looks like there's a group stage. Maybe that's kind of the initial, maybe that's what's going on right now, like the group stages, and that's where you have the qualifiers, or maybe qualifiers happen before the group stage. And then the knockouts are probably towards the end as you get closer to the actual like championship game. Oh boy.
From 2026, this effect is being compounded with fewer group games and more knockouts. The format of the tournament fundamentally matters, and you need to know how to make things easy for yourself. Italy played the qualification for this World Cup terribly. By losing a 2015 friendly game against Portugal, their FIFA ranking dipped at the exact moment that European qualification groups were being drawn up for the 2018 FIFA World Cup in Russia. Their low rank of that moment meant playing in Spain's group for a single automatic place, a more difficult prospect than their 2014 group. They obviously finished second and had to play Sweden in a high-stakes playoff tie. You might say that they should have won the playoff, but they shouldn't have been in that high-risk position to start with. They could have had a far easier run-in had they not fallen behind Slovakia, Croatia and Wales in the FIFA rankings of July 2015. Home advantage accounts for around 2/3 of a goal per game on average internationally, but the World Cup is on neutral ground.
So FIFA rankings FIFA basically ranks each team, each nation, based on, I don't know, whatever their standards are. And so you have like a number ranking, and does that affect your group status, I guess? Like, so if you're in like Spain's group and Spain is ranked number 5 and Italy's ranked 17, you're in last place in your group, and then maybe you're not as favorably paired with your opponent or something. I guess that's how it works.
For every team except one, the hosts, who also qualify automatically for the tournament and receive favourable opponents in the initial group stage.
Wait, so if you host the World Cup, you qualify automatically? Okay, I didn't know you could do that. Maybe it's just kind of like FIFA's way of saying thank you for hosting, you get into the tournament.
Also qualify automatically for the tournament and receive favourable opponents in the initial group stage. Between 1930 and 2006, 6 hosts had won the World Cup. 3 other times, a neighbouring nation had won. That's half the tournaments won, with a home advantage playing a huge role. Until 2010, every host nation had qualified for the knockout rounds. Wow. The first host to finish lower than second in their group was, yeah, you've guessed it, South Africa. Rule 5. Play the tournament, not the game.
Alright.
Unlike a club side, an international manager can do very little to change what God has given them. That's what makes this type of football largely dependent on other factors. So follow these rules. If your nation is big, rich, connected, experienced in football, and smart about the game off the pitch, these will give you the good conditions to further your national game and win the World Cup. But it's no guarantee. The games still have to be played. So let's go and watch it, shall we?
Yes, let's. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna have to watch a lot more videos that would not only raise questions about football for me in the World Cup, but also about South Africa. So I want to know more about South Africa now. Like, what the heck is going on down there? The only real connection I've seen with South Africa is I did watch Zulu over on my Patreon. We have movie nights over there, and Zulu was one of the movies that we watched not too long ago. And it is about the British army stand against one of the Zulu tribes there in South Africa. I did get to see like the scenery of it. They filmed, I don't think it was on the exact location of where the battle happened, but pretty close to it. And the scenery was amazing. I loved getting to see the scenery of South Africa. But I basically just learned that the British had their military down there. They had basically colonized it. There were a lot of Dutch settlers down there as well, and that's about all I got out of it. Like, I don't really know the history of it, so I did get something out of this. Now I know that there are group stages and there are knockout rounds. Even though this video used a lot of humor, there was a lot of factual, like statistical stuff in here that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, you have a larger population, you have a larger pool of talent to pull from. You know, a better economy also gives you a bit more of, you know, leisure time. So you have a bit more time to devote to things like sports. And of course, also the experience factor is a big one too. This was a really interesting video. It's not exactly what I thought it was going to be, but it took a completely different angle, you know, at the World Cup, and I really enjoyed it actually. So I might have to check out more stuff on this channel. I really like the way that they go about doing their videos. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video as well. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done that yet. We're going to be doing more football stuff on the lead up to the World Cup, especially because I've never watched it before. I've not even been aware that it was going on, honestly, until I started seeing it like pop up in news stories and stuff. I was like, oh, I guess the World Cup's happening, right? I've never bothered to watch it or follow it before, so this will be the first time that I do that this year. I actually don't even know where's it being played. Where is the championship being played? And I'll have to follow the US team. Woohoo! Don't expect us to get very far. I do know that the US kind of sucks when it comes to football, except for the women's team, but I can't wait to see who's gonna win it this year. If you guys have any predictions, let me know down in the comments. Also down there in my pinned comment, you'll find links to my Patreon if you're interested in checking out the videos I have over on Patreon. I do a lot of stuff over there that I don't do here on YouTube, so if you're interested in checking that stuff out, the link is in my pinned comment and in the description, along with all of my social media, PO Box, Star Trek podcast link for all you Trekkies if you're interested in that. Yeah, go check it out, go explore. Anyway, Roger, Scarlett, and I thank you guys for watching. As always, stay tuned for more football coming up on my channel, and we'll see you guys next time.